What is up, guys, and welcome back to another one of my Epic 7 YouTube videos. Today I have another special video for you guys. I'm going to be telling you guys the top 10 3-star units in the game for both PvE and PvP. Now, 3-star units are very important to Epic 7 because they are units that are accessible to pretty much everyone, and they're very important for early game players because those are the first units that you'll have access to. And these units are actually very powerful in their own right, and Smilegate has done a very good job in making a lot of free-to-play 3-star options very strong for both early game PvE and PvP. Now, it's not to say that you can't use them late game either. Some of them are very strong late game, as you'll see, but they are technically more geared to early game players, and, you know, for the most part, you're going to be switching them out for 5-star units that you get. But if you don't get those 5 stars, it's okay. You can just use these really strong 3 stars, and it'll take you through most of the game. Now, without further ado, let's get started with the ranking, and I'm going to start with some honorable mentions. Now, starting with the honorable mentions, we're going to have Judith. Now, Judith is a weird unit in that she pretty much is only here for one use, which is her S3. But the thing is, early game it is really hard to find a unit that can CR push your team for PvP. So if you're looking to cleave in PvP, Judith is a really good option. Her base speed is also not that bad. If you look at her base speed, 113, it's okay. So you can actually have her open for your team and boost your, your defense breaker or your CR pushback, whatever you're cleaving with, and then have your DPS go after to make cleaving really easy. Now, Judith will lessen the speed requirements of your team considerably because she does push your team for you, and she's just a really solid option for cleaving for early game players. You don't even need to invest too much on her. You can actually just get her to, I think, level 40, 4 stars, where she gets another speed awakening, which makes her even faster. And afterwards, you don't need to promote her to 5 stars or 6 stars. You can just keep her at 4 stars at level 40, and she will just do her job in CR pushing her team for you. Now, another honorable mention that we're going to have is going to be the 3-star dark unit, Hurado. Now, he's a dark unit, so he might be harder to get, but he's still fairly easy to get if you pull enough on Covenants and Moonlight summons. So don't worry, you'll get him eventually. But what he does is he's really nice when paired with Judith, actually, because Judith can go first, push him up, and then Hurado can S3. And what he will do is he'll strip or dispel everyone's immunity or whatever buffs they have on them, and also CR push them back. So if you have Judith and Hurado together, you'll guarantee Hurado can go right after Judith. Hurado can strip and push them back, and then your 3rd and 4th unit can either be like an attack buff or a defense breaker, and then you can have your big AoE cleaver to your damage and basically cleave the enemy team in arena. So Hurado and Judith are really nice when paired together in arena offense. You can use them to cleave up to like masters, and it should be pretty easy actually if you have the right cleave unit and the right, attack buff or defense break unit paired with them. And yeah, he's basically like a budget Bazaar. The only thing is you have to build some effectiveness on him because you can't soul burn to ignore effect resist, but he's still a very, very solid stripper and CR pushback. He's actually just very underrated because he is memed by the community. Following Hurado, we have Celeste, a light ranger. She's also a Moonlight 3-star, so you might have troubles picking her up early game, but once you do get her, you'll see that she has a heal and increased attack with an extra turn, so you can use S3 into her S2, which is a CR decrease similar to Hurado. The only thing is this does not strip, and the way that she works usually is you want to use her in teams that cleave, but you want to be able to get more than 2 or even 3 of these S2s off, because when your health is more than 80%, you'll see that you do not have a cooldown on this, so you can just keep lapping people and CR pushing them back. So she's mostly used in RTA or even like some bruisery teams as an opener. You're not going to really use her in a super cleave team. You might use her in some, but I really recommend using her in a bit of a slower bruiser team, with her as an opener and someone to cycle with and someone to heal to keep her up, even though she is technically self-sustainable with her S3. So yeah, she's a very solid PvP choice in RTA, so that is why she lands in the honorable mentions, because yeah, she's just a very strong PvP unit. Not really much usage in PvE, but she's very strong in PvP for RTA, and you can technically try her out in a cleave team as well and probably see some success as well if you have a stripper paired with her. After Celeste, we have a unit that is similar to Judith, Righteous Thief Roozid. He is the specialty change of Roozid. Now, he has 2 debuffs, one on his S1, which decreases speed, single target, and an attack down on his S2. So pretty decent, and he also scales with speed, so if you build him really fast, he actually does considerable damage. He's very good in Ice Expedition. You could take him in a lot of PvE content as well. He's pretty good as a DPS because he also has increased speed buff on his S3 with a CR push that also heals him. So you can use him in place of Judith as a CR pusher in PvP, It's really nice because he does have a speed imprint, so he will give a lot of speed boost to your team to make it easier to gear units if you want to cleave in PvP. The only thing is his base speed is a bit lower than Judith, so for himself it'll be harder for him to hit the speed thresholds. But if you can meet the speed thresholds and outspeed people in arena consistently, he's very, very nice to have as an addition to your arena offense roster, especially if you want to cleave. So yeah, the CR push is really nice, increased speed's nice. He's basically used in Ice Expedition for PvP, for PvE. You can also use him in some other hell bosses. The speed buff is really underrated. It's really a nice buff to have in PvE because you'll just slap the boss more obviously and get a lot more cooldowns reset on your main DPS units. Another decent honorable mention choice is going to be Mercenary Helga, or SC Helga. She's very good at defense breaking, as you'll see in S1, she has a chance to defense break for 2 turns. She also has another one in her S2 to have another chance to defense break for 2 turns, and also when you crit, she'll extend buffs that is granted to her, which ties in very well with her S3 because she has an attack buff for her team for 2 turns and effectiveness buff. So it makes her very good in PvP offense teams, especially arena, because if you set up a cleave team, you can use her as an attack buffer and increase effectiveness. So if you have a defense breaker that goes right after her, they'll have a higher chance to land their defense break. It also will increase her CR so she can clean up with any other S1 or S2 skills that she wants and, you know, finish off low units. Now in PvE, she's pretty good as well. She's good in Ice Expedition. You can use her as an all-around single target DPS or defense breaker. She's not that bad. She's pretty decent at it, and she's also okay in Banshee as a defense breaker as well. So yeah, very solid unit. That's why I would put her as another honorable mention. Now, one of the last few honorable mentions is going to be Christy. She is a new unit, so not a lot of testing has been done, but from what I've seen and what I've tested so far, she's pretty decent actually for PvP. You'll see that her S2 is going to be that you basically give 50% of your effect resist to the ally in the back row. So if you have like a Landy and you want to run Landy comps in RTA or Arena offense and you're struggling against carrots, what you can do is you actually give her about 200% effect resist and then make her full tank. And what you'll do is you give 100% effect resist to Landy. So if the carrot doesn't have any effectiveness, which most carrots don't, you will actually resist every single burn every single time and you won't get stripped of your guiding light unless, of course, the damage breaks through your barrier. She also has an attack buff, and she's pretty tanky with her S3 because she gets defense buff and recovers HP, and the provoke is pretty nice to CC lock some units. So yeah, very underrated. She's new, so I guess she might not be underrated, just people don't know about her. I recommend using her if you are in the mid late game and are looking for an answer to carrot. Even though she's an earth unit, she will resist the carrot's burns, and she will make her DPS also resist it, so it's pretty nice to have against a carrot. And the last honorable mention for the 3-star list is going to be Camilla. Now she's also a new unit that came out with Christy and 3 other 3-star units. She's a light warrior, so it might be hard to get her because she's a Moonlight. You might have to pull a bit more for her, but she's pretty decent, very good in PvP because she has a forced dual attack when she has her buff on, her increased attack buff, which she gets from her S2. So basically what you do is you just S2 and then you get the skill nulling, you S1, you get the forced dual attack, and you do a lot of damage. Her S3 is also really nice because whenever you kill someone with it, you get recovered to full health, kind of like Sage Ball, and you do more damage when the target's lower. So it's like an execute, and basically when this is available, you don't have to use it right away. It is a 30% damage reduction. It's crazy. So yeah, very strong PvP unit. I think she's really nice on a bruiser build. I think more people need to test with her, and I think people realize she's pretty strong for a 3-star unit. And similar kind of like to Mersa in the fact that she's very tanky, although Mersa has a dodge. That's why I think Camilla might be a little bit better because there's less RNG. And as we are finished with the honorable mentions, we're going to start with the top 10 list starting at number 10. And number 10 is none other than the Ice Warrior Taranor Guard. Taranor Guard is very useful in Wyvern up to Wyvern 13. He has a defense break on his S1, even has dual attack and CR push on his S2. His S3 is pretty useless for PvE. Yeah, and in PvP he is not used at all, but he's a good single target DPS. You can use him in, like I said, Wyvern. You can use him in Fire Expedition. You can use him in like pretty much any form of content where you need a single target DPS that can also defense break. The extra dual attack chance is also pretty nice too because you just get extra DPS, although it is RNG. So yeah, very solid free to play option for DPS. He's kind of fallen out of favor because of Furious's release, where Furious is just better than him in Wyvern, and you don't really need him for Fire Expedition, but he's still a good single target DPS if you have him built already, or if you have him at like 5 stars because you played a while back and you came back to the game. He's still okay to build. You can keep him at 5 stars, to be honest. He'll do his job. He's just a really solid DPS unit that is underrated at the moment. although in the past he was actually very highly rated. But yeah, in the current times, he's pretty underrated. I think he's pretty decent still. If you guys want to use him, be my guest. He's a very strong single target DPS unit with a supportive defense break. And at the number 9 spot, we have none other than Kiris. Now, Kiris is the Abyss Queen. Her and S10A are the best DPSs in late Abyss floors, just because both of these units revolve around poisoning units. So you'll see her S1 is a poison for 2 turns. If you S3 before it, it'll give you 3 poisons, and the effect chance is 100%. So as long as you have enough effectiveness, it'll land, barring that you don't get 15%ed. And then your S2 also extends your poison debuff duration, and it also can ignore effect resist if you burn it. So it's really good because poison in this game scales with the percent max health of the target. So if you poison a boss with 3 poison spells, it'll take for 15% of their max HP. 2 poisons will be 10%, and 1 poison is 5%. So you can do 15% damage a turn with her, and you can actually extend the poisons to 3 turns, right? So that's 45% damage with just 1 rotation of Kiris. Now, this is really nice against Abyss floors because Abyss bosses have so much health, and that is why Kiris is at our number 9 spot. She is known as a cheeser, quote-unquote cheeser for Abyss, so if you use her with like Dizzy to extend debuffs even more, she's very, very powerful for Abyss. I cannot put her on honorable mentions or anywhere below this because Kiris is just a beast for Abyss. If you're struggling with Abyss, just build the Kiris, get it to 5 stars, and she'll do her job, and she'll carry you for a lot of Abyss floors. At number 8, we have Specialty Change Doris, or Magic Scholar Doris. She's also a light unit, so she might be hard to get, but you will eventually get her through Covenant Summons and Moonlight Summons. She is a Soul Weaver and is very good at healing her team and also giving a defense buff with a heal buff. So she's very strong at CR cycling as well, kind of like another unit that is later on and higher up in the list. And she's also okay at dispelling debuffs. Now you guys might think that she's better than how I placed her. The only reason I have her at number 8 and not a little bit higher is although she's very good as a dark bait unit or baiting dark units to hit her, because one of her skill tree skills is that when she gets hit by a dark unit, she gets bonus effects. She is only really used in PvP. She can be used in PvE, but there's no reason to really use her because higher up on this tier list, you'll see another Soul Weaver that is very, very powerful that you'll always use over her. So just because she can only be used in PvP and is kind of niche in PvP as well, although in RTA you can draft her pretty regularly if you like running a lot of Soul Weavers, she's at the number 8 spot. Now, she's a little bit weaker early game than the other units on this list, so she's more geared towards mid game and late game players. So yeah, I cannot place her too high, especially because 3 stars are generally geared towards early mid game, and also she is kind of outclassed later on by other Soul Weavers. And next we have Penelope, dark unit. So she is kind of harder to get, but she is one of the newer units, so a lot of people don't have her anyways, so you won't be alone if you don't have her yet. She's waifu as hell. Look at her, she looks great, very, very nice. She's a new unit, but I think people are starting to realize how strong she is. She's very good in PvE and PvP actually, and her PvE is really nice because you'll see in her S1, whenever like a trash ad is defeated, some bosses spawn ads, she gets a CR increase. 75% is huge. She also gets an attack effect increase up to 3 times, kind of like Luluka and Lorina. That's why she's very, very strong. She can be used as a single target DPS. Also, she doesn't have any debuffs, which is really nice because yeah, having debuffs in her S1 can sometimes be detrimental because some bosses can only have a certain amount of debuffs on them before they full cleanse and counterattack, like one-shot your team or something like that, right? S2 is nice because it is a cleanse. Now, it's not really a full cleanse, but it decreases all debuff durations on your team by 1 turn, which is really nice because a lot of debuffs that bosses do will be 1 turn. So you can basically cleanse it off, and you also get a barrier, it makes her tanky, and you get an extra turn so you can attack again. So this also scales with your attack, so the barrier will be pretty thick, and it is a 3-turn barrier. So you'll see that this is a 4-turn skill, so you can have a barrier up on your DPS units almost all the time from your main DPS. Your main DPS is barriering your team, that's crazy. Her S3 is mostly a PvP skill. It is a resource reduction, so on SSB or Riot, if it lands, it'll push back their bar to 0. On Ravi or Landy, it'll push back their bar to 0 too. So it is a very strong skill. Also will decrease attack and potentially stun. So yeah, you're basically neutering the enemy DPS in PvP. Also, it will give you stealth. So in PvE it's also nice because the decreased attack for 2 turns will save you against like big boss S3s to reduce the damage you take on your party. The resource reduction is mostly for PvP because it won't really work on bosses, and the stealth makes her even more tankier. So yeah, I think Penelope is a very solid pick. She's at the number 7, but honestly she could probably be even higher. I think the more people play with her, I think they'll realize in PvE and PvP she's actually a monster. But yeah, she also has a crit chance self-imprint, so it's actually really easy to build her, and you can even stack more offensive stats on her. So yeah, I think she's a very solid pick. I think she may be even like lowly rated on my list. I think she might be even worthy of top 5. But yeah, I'll update the list as we go, and right now Penelope stands at number 7. Now at the number 6 spot we have Alexa. Now Alexa, I'm going to be straight up about it, she's only really ever used in Wyvern, and yeah, that's basically it. So the reason why she's at number 6, even though she's only used in one area of content, is because she is so damn good at Wyvern. Now if you have Cigarette, you can actually run her with Alexa, and Cigarette and Alexa combined do the most damage in the game on the boss for early game. So for Wyvern, it'll just melt and you'll be able to kill it before barrier most of the time. She also has supporting debuffs with her S2, poison's really nice and gives her CR push, and her S3 skills kind of like Cigarette, where if you have more debuffs on the target you're attacking, you just do more damage. Her S1 is nice though because when you crit with it, which you should be always critting in Wyvern, because if you're running Furious, you only need 35% crit chance, which is really easy to attain. And yeah, you'll hit twice with your S1, which means if you have Daydream Joker, it actually procs twice in one turn. So that does most of your damage in Wyvern. So she actually does a crazy amount of damage in Wyvern. And for a lot of free-to-play players that are struggling with breaking the boss down before you hit barrier phase, or even breaking the barrier itself, I really recommend using Alexa, given that you have enough debuffs for Wyvern 13, because she will do your heavy lifting and damage in the damage department. She will do the most damage in the game early game for Wyvern until your Cigarette gets more geared. And if you don't have Cigarette, then yeah, you should use Alexa for sure as your main damage dealer. And finally, breaking into the top 5, we're going to have all specialty change units, guys. Specialty change units are a lot better than not being specialty changed, obviously, but it is because they get bonus effects on their skills. Some of them you can't even see on the skills itself. You have to go into the skill tree, which is available if you press the awaken button. You'll see skill tree at the bottom left. You click it, you'll see you can upgrade their stats, all their skills. It just is a huge increase to their power, which is why a lot of people are asking for more specialty change units, and I agree there should be more because it makes a lot of 3 stars very strong. Now, starting off at number 5, we're going to have Commander Lorina. She used to be a lot higher on the list, even, you know, number 1, number 2 contention, but the thing is, a lot of good single target free-to-play options have been released, so she has fallen down a bit. She's a mainly single target unit. She's also a dark unit, which might signal to you guys that she's hard to get, but she's available from connections, so don't worry about that. You can get her anytime once you finish your quest, and she is very important to use if you're lacking a single target DPS. Now the reason why she's so good at single target DPS is because her S1 CR pushes herself, which is very nice for early DPS. Her S2 is the main reason why. You'll see that she can get a stacking attack bonus. It'll be 15% once you max it out, which you should because 3 stars are all free. You don't need Mola, you only need Catalyst, which are farmable. And this can stack up to 5 times, and that's a 75% attack bonus to her if you make her go 5 times, and it is permanent for the entire battle. So 75% attack bonus is crazy. It makes you do so much damage, and our S3 also does a crazy amount of damage if the target is lower. So yeah, she just does a lot of damage. She also doesn't have any debuffs, which means you can take her against every single boss in the game that requires single target DPS, and she will just carry you. Now PvP, she doesn't have any usage, but she's just so broken in PvE in like Raid, Labyrinth. You can use her in Abyss. You can even use her in like Ice Expedition and some other expeditions if you wanted to, and she will carry you for your single target DPS. If you really need more damage against a lot of bosses in the mid game, early game for PvE, I really recommend building your Commander Lorina. She is crazy strong, and even though a lot of units have been released that can replace her, that are like 5-star ML units, if you don't have those units, Commander Lorina will be crazy for you. Now, number 4 on the list after Commander Lorina. Now, you guys might be surprised because everyone talks about how broken she is, but she's only really ever used in PvP. She is crazy broken in PvP, but she's not used in PvE at all. That's why I have her at number 4. If this was solely PvP, she would be like number 1, easily, no doubt, hands down. But since she can't be used in PvE, I cannot rate her higher than 4 because the other 3 are just really crazy in PvE and PvP. So, Carrot is obviously one of the best PvP units. She has S3s with a soul burn. When you have her on Tagahells, she burns, you know, Landy or any DPS, honestly, and if the burn lands, you just S1, and bam, they're dead. Also, she's very tanky with her S2. She gets a barrier, she cleanses. It's not said here because it's in her skill tree. She also gets a healing buff. So yeah, very, very impressive bruiser in PvP. If you're looking to break into PvP, you have to build this unit carrot. I don't care what ML 5 stars you have. You have like S10A, if you have Strays, FCC, just build carrot first. She will carry you. You can take her into every single form of PvP content, arena, offense, defense, Guild Wars offense, defense, RTA. She's just a beast. So make sure you build her. She's crazy strong. Unfortunately, she's not used in PvE at all. So yeah, you're only going to be really using her once you hit mid game and have your PvE teams online. But once you do, make sure to build this vegetable. Now breaking into top 3. Now to no surprise, I'm pretty sure you guys already know, Falconer Kluri's up here. She is a very strong PvP unit and PvE unit. In the past, she was literally S tier in PvP for RTA and everywhere. But the thing is, she's fallen out of the meta a little bit because there's a lot of strong fire units nowadays, and being Earth is kind of hard in PvP, especially in RTA, which she was very, very highly contested in. But she's still very strong nonetheless. And in PvE, she's always been super powerful. Her S1 is a CR push. In her skill tree, this will also CR push someone on your team. S2 is an AoE heal once you have your skill tree in it. Very, very powerful. She's like a good off healer. She's also a knight, by the way, so she can hold Aureus or Adamant Shield to reduce damage on your party and team. So against bosses that do a lot of damage, it's really nice to have a knight such as Falconer Kluri, because they can, you know, hold Aureus, and she can also heal you. Her S3 is her big kicker though. She has a full strip, and it'll be 100% chance, and you can also burn it so you can't get 15%ed. It'll also defense break for 2 turns, and the provoke is really nice too in PvP. In PvE, provoke doesn't matter, but in PvP, it's super nice because you basically lock them down for 2 turns, right? So she's a very, very powerful unit for PvE and PvP. In PvP, you can take her literally anywhere. I just don't recommend using her in defense because she is counterable. And in PvE, you can take her basically everywhere as well. You can take her into Ice Expeditions, which she's really good. I take her into Fire Expedition actually as my CR push, so you can use her there as well. You can also use her in Abyss, very good in Abyss, very, very good in Hell Raid and Normal Raid and Labyrinth. And you can use her in Banshee normal teams as well, and even Azimnak 13. So very, very powerful unit. She basically is good everywhere, so you want to build her no matter what. She should be one of your top priorities to build early game. Now at the number 2 spot, we have the main character, Ross. Now Ross in his base form is very, very garbage. He's one of the worst units in the game. But once you specialty change him after beating episode 2, which I really recommend beelining for because he is one of the best units for free-to-play users in the game, you'll realize how powerful he is. So you'll see that his S1 is going to be a strip, single target, very nice to have against like Hell Queen, Azimnak 13, and some X-Move bosses where you want to strip their attack buff or defense buff. S2 is very, very powerful because it is a dual attack, which is forced. You could bring your highest attack DPS unit, so you're basically bring your DPS whenever you use this, so it's very nice. You also have a chance to defense break before your DPS goes. It's not listed here, but it is in the skill tree, and I think it is 60%. So you can defense break and then have your DPS go with your dual attack, so it's crazy, crazy strong. You'll also see that it's a 3-turn cooldown, and it can be decreased by 2 turns if you soul burn. So if you soul burn this every turn, if you have like 4 souls stored up, you can actually soul burn this 4 times in a row, and you get 4 forced dual attacks with a defense break chance. Very crazy. It makes Adventurer Ross very high damage, not in the sense that he does damage, but you have a lot of forced dual attacks that you can spam. So that's why he's very, very powerful in PvP and PvE. And his S3 is nothing to laugh at either. It is a very strong skill. You have an increased defense buff for 2 turns for everyone, which is one of the best buffs in the game. And you also heal himself for a decent amount, so it is a very, very powerful skill, makes him very tanky and his team very tanky. Now he's very similar to Falconer Kluri, where you could take him into, like Falconer Kluri, you can take him into Labyrinth, Abyss, Hell Raid, you can take him into Expeditions, right, and Golem, like wherever you want. But the thing is, he is slightly better because you can use him in PvP like Falconer Kluri everywhere, but he can be used in defense teams, and I personally think that he is slightly better than PvE while being similar or very slightly worse than PvP. So that's why I think he's at number 2. And his specialty change quest is pretty easy. You just have to beat episode 2, which shouldn't be too much of a problem if you have good supportive friends. And yeah, you just need to farm runes for his quest, which you have to do anyways to max out a skill tree. So yeah, Ross, very, very powerful unit. Very strong in PvP and PvE. I very highly recommend building him as soon as you can, right after the number 1 unit on the Switch list, which I'll go over right now. Now, last but not least, we have Angelic Montmorancy at the number 1 spot for 3-star units to build. Now, the reason why she's number 1 is because she is a very powerful soul weaver. She is one of the 2 best soul weavers in PvE, hands down, the other being Tamarin. And you can use her in PvP everywhere, you can use her in PvE everywhere. Just very, very, very powerful. Now her S1 is a sleep, very useful in PvP. If you get lucky and RNG'd sleep a DPS unit, it can really cripple people's DPS unit because they miss out on their turn. If it is a crucial turn, you'll basically be able to stun them. It's basically a stun if you don't wake them up with an attack. Her S2 is a 1 debuff cleanse that also heals. The cooldown is very low, 2 turns, and you have a chance to make a 1 turn through her skill tree, and it can also give you continuous healing buff, which is really nice for even more healing. And her S3 is a 3 turn cooldown, heal and immunity buff on 1 target, also will dispel 2 debuffs and give her a CR push. So if you soul burn it, it'll be to everyone. So she cycles super fast, she has a pretty decent healing, and she has crazy cleansing abilities, so that's why she's really strong with her short cooldowns. In PvP, you can take her in like every offense team if you need a healer. I know I've used her for a long time. I even use her now if I want to, bring her into a carry team and I have my other soul weavers doing other things in Guild Wars. You can also take her on defense team. She's really annoying because she just perma cleanses and heals herself. Also counters carrot. You can use her in PvE like basically everywhere. A lot of people use her in Hell Raid all the time. They use her in Abyss all the time, some expeditions. She's a very good replacement to Tamarin. So if a lot of people recommend Tamarin in some hunts like A13, you can just bring in Momo and she'll be fine. She can do the job just as well, if not a little bit better for healing and cleansing. The only thing is she doesn't have an attack buff like Tamarin and dual attack, so it is a little slower, but she is better for cleansing and healing than Tamarin will be. Now for Wyvern 13, which some people recommend taking her for, I don't really recommend taking her. Her base stats are a little bit lower, so it's harder to get her tanky enough to tank Wyvern 13, especially early game. Since Wyvern 13 is your primary focus early game, you don't want to have a unit that has really high gear requirements for it because you're early game, right? You don't have access to the gear. So I don't recommend using her. I recommend using like Angelica or G-Purge if you have them. But Angelic Montmorancy can tank Wyvern 13. She does the job fine if you have the gear for her, and yeah. Very powerful unit. Her skill tree is also crazy. It gives her crazy effect resist, so she's a very good cleanser in PvP as well. So yeah, very strong. Make sure you build her if you don't have her built. I don't know why you wouldn't have her built at this time, but if you guys don't, it's okay. Just build her ASAP. Her skill tree is very easy to fill out. It's very useful. It gives her a lot of boosts, and her quest is very simple to complete as well. So make sure you guys have this unit built as soon as you can. She will carry you in PvE and PvP, and she's at the #1 spot for a reason. Now that's pretty much it for my top 10 3-star units to build guides, and also the honorable mentions. So make sure you guys build these units ASAP. I think the top 3 units you want to build for sure, and then number 4, number 5, Carrot and Lorina, you want to build them as well eventually, depending on what you need. And everyone else in the top 10 list are also pretty nice to build as well. You can't go wrong with building them, and honorable mentions are okay as well. So yeah, I hope this guide helped you out, guys, and decide who you want to build, especially for your free-to-play players who don't have access to that many units. Make sure you guys leave a like, comment, and subscribe, guys. It really helps me out a lot, and I will be back with more videos soon. See ya.